Now, sending mail back in colonial days was not an easy thing to do. And because it was so expensive, that they found creative ways to do it. In fact, envelopes have been around for thousands of years, but they're expensive because they had to be cut by hand and folded by hand. So they would take and learn to fold a piece of paper like this and tuck it in here. And then if you're really good, if you're really lucky, you might have a wax seal. Now, this is something brand new I've gotten into. I've just been practicing. But you see with that wax, you melt it, pour it on here, and then you have a seal that you stamp it with. So whenever whoever you're sending it to gets that, they'll look for the seal, and they know it's beneficial. And that's hopefully one way to stop people from prying into your mail. But this is how they would do it. You see, they would take a piece of paper, they'd write their letter on it, but then they would fold it like that, then fold it up this way, bring the top down there. This gets a little tricky. I'm not real good at it yet. But you try to stick it in this upper flap and kind of keep the busybodies from peeping into your mail. And then if you're lucky and you had the wax sealing set, you could seal, put it on there to make sure that it at least wouldn't be looked into. At least that's what your hope is. Now, the bad thing about mailing a letter back in colonial America, it was very expensive. So if you sent a letter to somebody, the recipient had to pay postage. And so it could be very expensive. If you've ever watched any movie from the 18th century into the 19th century, and if a courier comes to your door in the middle of the night, well, usually the gentleman of the house usually has a bag of coins. He's paying the courier for bringing the letter to you. So that's why a lot of letters didn't get mailed or accepted in colonial days, because it could be quite expensive to mail a letter. Here in the U.S., it wouldn't be until the 1840s when the Postal Service standardized rates and actually came up with the method for assigning numbers to houses to mail you a letter. In colonial days, like we have here, General Whedon headquarters. If you wanted to send a letter to George's sister Betty, who lives up in Fredericksburg, you'd address it Mrs. Betty Lewis, Lewis Plantation, or just Fredericksburg. And it would go to a central location. They would either have somebody pick it up for them. It wasn't until the 1800s that they started mail delivery as we know it today. In fact, they said that was one of the first jobs Abraham Lincoln had, was delivering the mail. But there were still some conditions about that. But anyway, this is a way, because paper was very expensive, that they would try to make it as light as possible, make it as easy as possible to send a letter. That's why during this time, you find very few letters in envelopes, because envelopes were just very expensive to get.